great, big, beautiful world out there. And here I sit, sucking on popsicles.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Imbasciani Chronicles. I'm your host, Mike Imbasciani. Thank you for joining us here on the channel, and if you like this video, leave a like on here and comment down below, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel and see a whole bunch of other videos, live gig videos, this show right here, the Imbasciani Chronicles, some reaction videos, and the Loft sessions. Have a great guest today, a good friend of mine, a hilarious comedian, Mr. Derek Richards. He has a whole bunch of stuff available. He does the Irish comedy tour. He has his record Double Down that you can find many places. We're going to get into all that, as well as his book, Whiskey, Cancer, and Bad Decisions. But before we do that, let's sample some of this comedy. Here is Derek Richards.
I'll tell you, I got mask shamed here in Vegas during the lockdown. I was at the grocery store. I forgot my mask. Harmless enough. Go inside, got my cart, throw in 3 bottles of whiskey. Bag of Doritos, checkout line, lady behind me, mask, sir! Where's your mask? I'm like, why? She goes, if you have COVID, it protects me from getting COVID. I go, really? Take a look at my basket. I don't care about my health. Why would I give a shit about yours? We learned a lot during lockdown. We learned how stupid people can be. For example, if you're in a car alone wearing a mask, don't vote. You make dumb decisions for yourself. Don't try to help shape policy for the rest of us. We lost our minds during COVID, right? Now it's monkeypox? What the fuck? Let me tell you something. Best way to avoid monkeypox, take your COVID mask and cover your ass. Those of you not laughing, Google how to get monkeypox. And then delete your browser history. Because God forbid something happens to you tonight, and that's the last thing your family finds on your phone. Last couple years has been crazy. This whole planet's a dumpster fire. We don't care about anything. Pollute the air, pollute the ocean. People are like, you ever think aliens will inhabit us? I'm like, no. Are you kidding me? Aliens fly by Earth and look at us like a sketchy rest area bathroom. Like, man, I gotta go, but I'll wait till we get to Mars.
There it is. Mr. Derek Richards, how are you, buddy? It's good to see you again.
Good, man. Good to see you, too. How are you?
I'm good. I'm doing well. How's Las Vegas?
It's good. It's windy. It's cold. It's nice to be back here for a little stretch right now, and then I'm going to be I take off working on a cruise ship for a couple of weeks, and then I'm back here through the whole holiday season, which will be great. So
that'll be nice.
Excited about that.
Yeah, the holidays in Las Vegas. What are the holidays like on the Strip there?
Well, it's funny because people always automatically assume that you live on the Strip when you live out here in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I live in Henderson, so I'm like 15 minutes, southeast of the Strip. So
okay.
I have a regular neighborhood out here. It's, there's banks and there's grocery stores and everything. So it's, the Strip is always going to be the Strip. It doesn't change. Instead of, somebody walking around with no pants, now it's somebody walking around with no pants wearing a Santa cap. So
fun.
that's the only thing that changes.
Yeah, everybody is in the holiday spirit.
Yeah, it's funny. Well, there's always different, conventions and stuff that come rolling into town. And, actually right now the holidays is pretty quiet right up until New Year's. Mm. And then it gets insane. So really right around December 29th or 30th is when it just gets absolutely insane. And the population of Vegas, I think, increases, somewhere to, they'll bring in probably 400,000 people over New Year's. Wow. Yeah, so that's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Everybody says, oh, hey, I want to go hang out on the Strip. It's going to be fun. They're going to do the fireworks. It's going to be a blast, ring in the new year. But People forget it's cold out here. I mean, this is the desert, and it's
Yeah.
in the wintertime, it's cold. So people come out here and they go, oh, it's not warm and beautiful like we thought it was going to be. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
it's called do your research.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the desert. I was out in I've been out to Arizona, and even that, you know, in September you're in the desert and it snows up there too.
Oh, yeah, it does. I mean, we had a year, was it 2 years ago? I was supposed to fly out. We were going to do our, we were going to start the Irish comedy tour just north of Seattle a few years back. It was right before COVID. And, yeah, we got snowed in.
Wow.
We had a little bit of snow, and there's no method of snow removal out here at the airport in Vegas. So,
Of course not.
you know, I mean, I would have thought they just had a bunch of landscaping guys come out there with leaf blowers and start blowing the snow off, but apparently it's a little more involved than that.
Yeah, just a little bit I would think. And I've
Tells you why I don't work for the airport. So,
right.
but yeah, it does get cold out here.
And I remember I've only been, well, I don't remember it. I've seen the footage. I was only in Las Vegas once, and it was as a little baby, and my parents brought me out there because no better place to bring a young child. And I I was in the stroller. They were pushing me down. It was probably Caesar's Palace or one of the casinos, and just walking down the lane there, they have that carpeted area that's the pathway, and there were people coming up to my parents saying, make sure you stay in the path and you can't stop, you got to keep walking, because they were afraid that some toddler that barely had hand function was going to crawl out of the stroller. I learned to walk in Arizona on that trip too, so I not even walking yet, and was going to go out and pull the lever on one of the machines and win $1 million.
That's hysterical.
So,
That
but I haven't been
doesn't surprise
back. Yeah, but I want to go back
You
one of
should
these
go as
days.
an infant and then never go back. That's a great idea.
Yeah, you know, at least once. I went once. So, how did you end up in Las Vegas? When did you start doing comedy, and how did you end up getting to Las Vegas doing it?
I mean, I started in comedy back in '93, Thanksgiving of '93. So this past Thanksgiving weekend celebrated my 29 years doing this.
Nice.
And, I was down in South Florida for 12 years before I moved out here. I was married when I was living down there, and then we split up. I came out here to Vegas 10 years ago, and it's been fantastic. I mean, I'm from Michigan originally, from the Detroit area, so
Right.
it's nice coming out here and being away from snow come wintertime. It's nice going back and visiting snow once in a while, but having
Yeah.
to deal with it every day and get up and having to scrape the car and warm it up and have to navigate slushy, crappy streets. I'm like, yeah, I don't miss that part at all. I've got some of my best friends in the world. They're back in Michigan. Love to get back there and see them, and I do whenever I get a chance when I'm working, and that's always a good time. But Vegas has been great out here, man. Like I said, I have zero complaints. I spend a lot of time doing gigs out here, private gigs. Also, my two favorite clubs to work out here are Brad Garrett's club at the MGM,
Nice.
and also the Comedy Cellar over at the Rio. So those guys are
Cool.
Those guys are great to me, and it's a fun area.
That's great. And then you have your record now, Double Down. Where can people find that?
You can get it on iTunes. You can get it on find it on Spotify, Amazon. It was recorded actually down in your neck of the in Fort Myers,
Right.
over at Laugh-In Comedy Cafe. So yeah, it was a great venue down there. Great opportunity to record it. Was very happy with the way it came out, and I was grateful to get a premiere on Sirius satellite radio.
That's awesome.
And so they played the whole album in its entirety.
Wow.
Twice on a Sunday back in, it was August last year. So
Okay.
that was neat. That was a cool experience. So yeah, very very happy about how that worked out.
Cool. So with your specials that you do, and I want to get into the Irish comedy tour and how that differs from your regular comedy show that you do. And when you come out with a record like that, I mean, as a musician, and I play a lot of covers, and I just came out with my Eric Clapton tribute show, Simply Clapton, in January of 2021. So I'm coming up on a year anniversary of that. When you're putting together a special, are you spending more time writing the material, testing that material, and then you pick the venue you want? Do you record a couple different shows and pick the one that you want, or how does all that go together for you?
Well, for me, it's just it depends on the venue. I mean, because you can get a surprisingly good show out of any place. And
Yeah.
so when I wanted to put together a new album, I wanted to go ahead and at least bring my recorders with me at a number of different places, because you never know when you're going to catch lightning in a jar.
Right.
And so I had no idea that laughing was going to end up working out as well as it did. And so for me, I literally just hooked up a lavalier mic to my lapel, and then
In
also
addition
had
to
another, and then another H1 Zoom that was sitting on the stool on the stage, picking up the crowd response. And the lavalier mic that I had going into another H1 Zoom recorder works out great. I mean, it picks up, the ambient sounds in the room fantastic.
Right. That's good.
And so, I mean, I didn't even run a recording or a line off of the board. It just came straight off of me and off of the stool. And then a good friend of mine, Garrett Elzenga, who's a comedian who also does mixing up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I sent him the files, and then he mixed it all down and ended up submitting it to On Tour Records, and they liked it. And so they ended up, picking it up and getting it out there for me. So
that's great.
So, yeah, I mean that it wasn't chosen to be done there. It just happened to be a great sounding venue.
Great.
And because some of my favorite venues to play, when I've recorded stuff, it just doesn't come out as well as I would like it to.
Right. Too many hecklers.
So, well, it just the acoustics
right
in the room.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're like, it just doesn't have that good intimate feel like you really want for a comedy, for a comedy special. I mean, I'm sure for live music, I mean, you want a big sound. You want to have a nice, killer theater or killer venue to do it in, where you're getting, but I like being able to hear, ice cubes, clinking in a cocktail glass.
Right.
If listening to a comedy special, because I remember the ones from years ago, where they were all recorded in these tight little New York comedy clubs. That's what you heard. It just had that environment, like you felt like you were there.
Well, and I think when you can't see the person, if you're just listening to the audio of something like that, I think that's very important to have. You want to feel like you're in that room, and that's why I love live recordings. Most of my recordings that I do are always live, because that's usually the best environment, and you're getting, as a musician standpoint, you're getting the most out of yourself too, because you're feeding off of a live audience.
No, definitely. I mean, you want to get that energy, from the people in the room, and to the viewer or the listener. I mean, you want to be able to try to recreate that as much as possible for them.
Yeah, definitely. Very cool. So I have to say, for folks who don't know, I'm in Southwest Florida, and you come here usually once a year with the Irish Comedy Tour, and I want to get into how that started, but don't take it personally, because most of the stuff that ends up at thrift shops is probably because the person died. And the reason why I shop at a thrift shop is because I'm a poor musician. But I did find, I found quite the gem here. It's my green screen behind me is not going to pick up the green shirt, but it makes it look like even the guys in Tahiti. But I found one, the Irish Comedy Tour shirt. I love it. I love on the back, sobriety is not an option. So you're always in the Irish spirit.
Hey, I don't care where you found it. That's fantastic.
Yes,
I love it.
But
once it's sold off of my merchandise table, I don't care if you take it and then go wipe your ass with it.
Yes, but I was like, hey, that's a great find, and it was right in time too. As I had you scheduled to come on here, I was like, oh, it's beautiful. I love it.
That's hilarious. What'd you pay for it, if I may ask?
Probably around the $5 range. So somebody died, and left it to a good home, and that home is now mine.
Good. I'm glad.
Yes. So the Irish Comedy Tour. How'd you start it, and who all is involved in it now? And tell us about the history of it.
Well, started it back in 2006 in Jupiter, Florida, actually, and it was a guy who was running a theater over there, a small venue, had said, because I was booking the comedy shows over there, and he goes, "Hey, we got want to do a show on St. Patrick's Day." He goes, "Want to have you? And you got a couple of Irish American comic friends that we can throw together and just kind of make it a theme type show." And so good buddy Frank Licari, who ran the theater down there, had suggested putting this thing together. And I'm like, all right. So I had found, 3 other guys of Irish American background. We put together a show, and it really was well received. And another guy who was on the show with me says, I think this could go somewhere. And so the long story short is that I just didn't think that having 4 Irish American comics going up there was going to be as much of a selling point for the show. I wanted to try to create more of a party atmosphere.
Right.
Because again, you're talking 2006. You were looking at the Blue Collar Comedy Tour was out. You had the Kings of Comedy.
So you had like groups of comedians going out and doing these shows and kind of offering something
like the
different.
Latin Kings of Comedy, I believe, was another one. And it was just four acts that were going up there. And I'm like, yeah, let's add a different twist to it. And so we had added a musician, and we dialed it back to 2 comedians. And now we've got 2 musicians, Derek Kane and Damon Liebert, our guitar player and fiddle player. And then they act as the MCs of the show.
And they're fantastic, by the way. They're fantastic musicians.
They're both brilliant.
And they just go. You tell them to go, and they're gone.
Yeah. No, they're great. It's a fun show. These guys bring a ton of energy. They both have played, all over the world, doing gigs from, over in Europe and here in the States. And they just have just come from such a great background in performing. And Derek Kane has played with the Dublin City Ramblers, with the Wolf Tones. So yeah, he's got a lot of experience, and so it's great to have him. And he's just very quick-witted, very funny. And then so there's myself, and now we have Michael Malone, who just joined the tour this past year. So that's the 4 of us now, and so we just try to create as much of a fun party Irish pub atmosphere.
Yeah.
And it's a blast. I mean, like any band, you go through different members because of different different situations. I mean, everybody goes through different personal, trials and tribulations, and so you just kind of you got to weed out what it ends up not making sense for you, and just keep the people in that that are going to continue to elevate you and move you to the next level. And so we're really excited about Derek and Damon being on board, and now of course Michael Malone joining us here too.
Yeah, I remember Michael Malone. He's the newest member, essentially, of the group here, and I got to see him when you were at Vasani the last time. He did a great job. He has his book out, and he's a younger guy and very funny.
Yeah, lots of energy with him. He brings a lot to the table. He also, because when you're traveling with a band, and this is
you got to like each other.
You got to like each other. You can't be a pain in the ass off stage. You got to be able to work as a team. You got to be able to, okay, listen, this is our goal. We got to, get our stuff. We got to be here. We got to be, packed up. We got to go. We've got to get here to this venue. We've got to set up. Can you, help me do this, do that? And so it's a, it's a good collaborative effort. And I think this lineup here that we have now is really the strongest one. And so we're really excited about this next tour, which is going to start on last week of February in Johnson City, New York. And then we're going to be up in Peekskill, New York, and then all over the place. Boston, New Hampshire, some stuff in Pennsylvania, and then heading down to Florida. We'll be at Vasani on St. Patrick's Day.
I know, that's awesome.
Excited about that.
And that's
March 16th, 17th, 18th, that Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, that'll be great. And that's on St. Patrick's Day. That's Ken Lovejoy's birthday too.
I know.
So that's going to be a party, man. I'm at Leroy's that night as well.
Are
so
you really?
after your set, I expect you bring the whole gang and Lovejoy out there, and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh man, that's great. Leroy's is awesome.
So that'll be a lot of fun, especially St. Patrick's Day on a Friday night. Oh, it's going to be nuts.
Oh, I know. Yeah, we're super excited. I mean, last time we were at Vasani on St. Patrick's Day was when COVID hit.
Right.
And that was when, everything went sideways and no one knew what was going to happen. We had a bunch of dates that were falling out on us during the tour because that all unraveled really in March of 2020.
Oh, I remember. Yes.
And so it just, we had venues canceling. Some were staying on board. I mean, we ended up doing shows down at Vasani, but it was, smaller size crowd.
Yeah.
Because people didn't know what to expect.
Well, and Florida was where you had to go too, because Florida was the first state to open. So, and you were doing cruise ships too, and all that dried up. When did all that finally come back? It was kind of October 2020-ish, right? Or even into 2021.
Well, I came back. They had started to come back. It was really, I want to say it was in 2021 when they really came back.
Yeah.
And so it was like in the summer of 2021 is when they were starting to bring the ships back at that point. And so, they were asking, if comedian wanted to go out to do these, long-term contracts, like 4 and 5 months on the cruise ships. But the thing is, if you wanted to do that through the cruise line that I primarily work for, which is Royal Caribbean, they wanted to, have you be quarantined in your room for 2 weeks. I mean, like, you can't leave your cabin for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that alone was the catalyst for me to not do it. I go, I can't. And they were super cool. They understood. I'm like, I will lose my freaking mind if I have to stay in my cabin and not leave. I mean, they will bring you your food. They will do your laundry, but you can't leave your cabin.
Right.
And I'm like,
It's
I can't.
basically,
I mean,
you're a prisoner.
Yeah, I mean, I live in a very, very nice prison. I mean, I'm on a cruise ship with a balcony and everything like that. So I mean, there's there's worse places you could be stranded.
It's not the gulag in Russia.
No. It's not the Siberian work camp that Brittany Griner got sent to. But it's still being confined to a tight space, and I'm like, there's no way I can do that without just absolutely snapping. So I ended up declining that, but I didn't end up going back out of the ships until it was November of 2021, and even then they were still doing the mask mandates, like in the public areas, which I get. I mean, the cruise line's got to do whatever they can to protect themselves and make sure that people are as safe as possible. I mean, cruise lines are as clean. Royal Caribbean keeps theirs as clean as any cruise that I've ever been on, period. I mean, they're constantly sanitizing and wiping stuff down, and there's hand sanitizer machines everywhere just to make everyone feel as comfortable as possible. So but
that's
no,
good.
it's nice to get back to normal now. I mean, I just did a ship, was it a week and a half ago, and it was the largest ship in the world.
Wow.
It's on the it was a beautiful, beautiful ship, huge, packed. I mean, the thing holds like 6,700 people, and there was probably 6,600 on there.
Wow.
Over Thanksgiving. So
it's a floating
it was
city.
Slamming. Yeah. So they're back. I mean, it's cranking, and people are excited to get back out and do stuff and live life normally.
Good. Yeah, everybody needs it, that's for sure. That's definitely for sure.
No, I agree.
What's the with doing the cruise ships, what's the weirdest thing that has happened, or the funniest or worst that has happened on a cruise ship, either during a show or just being a bystander when you're not performing on a ship?
Well, we had there was an incident. Some guy, I mean, I hope he's okay. There was a medical emergency. We had to turn the ship around.
Yeah, you said that just happened, right?
That just happened. And we ended up being delayed because we had to stop off in San Juan, Puerto Rico to drop the guy off. And so for whatever reason, they couldn't fly a helicopter out there to get him.
Wow. He just wanted to hit the bar again in San Juan.
Exactly. So it literally just delayed the entire ship getting back to the Port Canaveral by a day.
Yeah.
And so that really kind of, threw things off. I mean, but as far as, weird stuff goes, I mean, a lot of it's just, the stupid things that you hear people say at guest services, things they want to complain about.
Yeah.
The other comedian who was on board does a great chunk about, talking about these different complaints that customers have, where somebody said, the sugar to cream ratio in the ice cream was off. And it's like, really, this is your, or the roast beef was cold on the buffet. It's like, it's a buffet. Seriously.
Right. By the time you got there.
Yeah. And what was funny was he makes the comment, and he says, you go to the front desk and there's some, here you are complaining, bitching to the, Ukrainian desk receptionist, and you're complaining about your sugar to cream ratio and the cold roast beef on the buffet, and she's like, yeah, let me tell you about my problems.
Yeah, exactly.
Russia invaded my country, so beat it.
Yeah,
that was his line, which just cracked me up. I was dying laughing.
That's great.
But most of the stuff is just silly things that passengers want to complain about. Mm-hmm. So
fun place to people watch, I'm sure.
Oh, it's never a dull moment.
Yeah. Well, I could tell when you were in the airport, because you were posting stuff on Instagram just talking about the people you're seeing in these airports and how ridiculous they are too.
Well, yeah, it was funny because it dawned on me, because the thing that I posted on Twitter, I said, I often wonder how Fetterman won the Senate race in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And I'm walking through the airport in Orlando, and I see a 50-year-old woman walking around in bedazzled Mickey Mouse ears, and I'm like, yeah, that all makes sense now.
It explains it.
It's all crystal clear. So the airport in Orlando, I'll tell you what, that is great birth control. If you're thinking about having kids, you need to go to the Orlando airport and just sit there for a couple hours, and it'll take care of that yearning to want to have kids. I guarantee you.
Yeah, everybody's either coming to Disney and they're crying, or they're leaving Disney and also crying.
They're tired, they're exhausted. But it's just, it's a nightmare. It is literally just the worst example of humanity ever.
Yeah, I believe it.
It is.
That's why I try to avoid airports. I want to talk about your book here, but before we do that, I have this video that I think prefaces it nicely.
Defensive. I find it funny. That's why I'm happier than you. Also got a book that I wrote called Whiskey, Cancer, and Bad Decisions. I am a 22-year cancer survivor. Happy to be alive even doing this. Great to see you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Cured cancer. Got the clap. Thanks. It's nice. I had to go through chemotherapy. One of the first things they tell you when you go through chemo is that you may lose your hair. And I'm like, all right, if that happens, I'm just going to go to my haircut lady, get it all shaved off, call it a day. So like clockwork, treatment number 2, hair starts falling out. I'm like, nope, not dealing with it. Go to my haircut lady. I'm over there, and I'm sitting in the chair, got my head in the sink, and she's washing my hair. We're talking, and she goes, this is weird. I'm like, what's going on? She goes, nothing. Then it dawns on me. My hair's fallen out, and I forgot to tell her why I was there. And I'm kind of a dick. So I'm like, buck it, let's let the joke play out. She keeps washing. She goes, I just don't understand what's going on. I go, what's happening? She goes, hey, it'll be fine. Then finally she steps back and she goes, oh, this is bad. I go, what? Swear to God. She goes, I think I used the wrong conditioner. I get up, I look in the sink, I'm like, the hell is wrong with you? I'm in my friend's wedding on Saturday. She goes, I'm so sorry. I go, nah, it's cool. Cancer, chemotherapy, hair's falling out, ha ha. She looks at me and goes, oh, thank God. I thought I fucked up.
I hope that's part of a chapter in the book, too.
That's I can't recall if I actually told that story exactly how that went down, but yeah, that's that actually happened. It was a true story.
Nice. Yeah. So your book here, Whiskey, Cancer, and Bad Decisions. Tell me about that. Nice face on the cover.
Yeah, that was actually, well, it was funny because that look on my face is legit because it was we shot it outside of a strip club in San Diego. And I was down there doing a corporate event. My buddy was the photographer for that corporate event. And I said, well, I need to get a shot for my book cover. And so we were driving around. We found this strip club adult, bookstore that's attached to it.
Yeah.
And so I'm in this hospital gown, looking like a lunatic, holding a glass of whiskey.
Just another day in California.
Just a day in Southern California, exactly. So we're outside the strip club, and he goes, oh, and he's a photographer, so he's trying to get the perfect angle, the perfect lighting. He's trying to dial it in, and so we didn't get permission to shoot it outside of this club. So we're like, let's just go in, shoot it, boom, hop in the car, take off.
Yeah.
And so there's people like walking in and out of the adult toy store because this is during the day. The strip club's not even open yet.
Right.
And so there's people walking in and out of the adult toy store, and they're kind of glancing over. They see this guy with this big, camera lens.
Yeah, and they go.
And
exactly. They're walking in and out of the store.
There's a senator walking in there, a pastor. A high school principal. He's going in there to grab his bondage gear, whatever they're into. Hey, you do you.
The head of Balenciaga.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're outside there, and he's shooting the pictures, and I'm like, "Will you snap these photos?" So that look on my face is me being literally exasperated with him going, "We have got to get out of here before they tell somebody inside."
Yeah. And
then somebody comes walking out, with a billy club or a bat or something, and says,
Yes.
"Get off our property." Mm-hmm. So that's how that shot even came about, which was perfect. But
yeah, it really is perfect.
No, but it was I put it together. It was based on the encouragement of a buddy of mine here in Vegas. We were just talking about different things in our lives, and comedian buddy of mine out here, Don Barnhart, had said, he goes, "You should tell your story." and write a book. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think there's anything, to really, go into there. And he goes, there's a lot to go into there. And then once I started kind of reliving it and going back and thinking about the things that I had gone through, from the cancer diagnosis and what came about at the time when I had, after I had been diagnosed with cancer. And, everybody goes through chapters in their life where it's just a bad time.
Yeah.
And so, I was kind of coming off of the heels of losing my both of my grandparents and my dad. And then I got diagnosed with cancer all within a 2-year period. And so it was rough. And so, I kind of, walk the reader through what I was going through at that time, and also still doing comedy.
Yeah.
And so having
to make yourself, laugh and
kind of removing yourself from that situation, which was very therapeutic, to be honest with you. It was great to be able to be forced to throw yourself into an environment where you have to release that.
Yeah.
And, because the audience is there to come and see, because they're out there trying to get, escape from their problems.
Right.
So, you got to go in there and do your job. There's certainly plenty of nights, I'm sure, when you don't feel like going up and playing guitar. You're like, I had some bad stuff happen to me today, and
right.
I don't feel like playing. And
yeah, well,
but you got to go up there and do what you're supposed to do.
Exactly, you said it. I mean, our job we're entertainers at the end of the day. So at the end of the day,
right.
You have to go up on stage, leave your problems off the stage, and then put on a great show so that people forget their problems. And that's the whole point of art, whether it's music or comedy especially. And I want to get into what's kind of happening to comedy, people getting offended and stuff. And we'll get into that in a minute. But comedy and music and movies and TV shows are supposed to be an escape from the real world. Sports is supposed to be an escape from the real world, so people can forget about their problems for an hour to 3 hours and enjoy themselves and be entertained.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
no,
important.
exactly. So it was tough to go through that. At least at the time, for me, it was difficult to get a cancer treatment the one day, and then 2 days later I have to go up and do a show and do a comedy show.
Yeah.
So, and there was a couple times when I actually had a chemotherapy treatment that day, and then went and did a show that night. And I was, exhausted. Mm-hmm. But
so was Walter White when he had to go and cook meth.
Exactly.
But he still did it.
Perfect example. He fed the masses.
Right.
So it was a great. I say it was the best experience I had ever gone through was getting cancer, was because it really made me appreciate everything. Yeah. And so I think it was kind of the book kind of documents where I was at before I was diagnosed with cancer, and then how things had evolved when I was going through the treatment and getting better. And then really what I ended up learning, on the back end of it, coming out of it being now 29 years. Well, let's see, now it's 22 years.
Okay.
Wow. Cancer free.
That's great, man.
And so,
congratulations.
Which is great, man.
Yeah.
Hey, knock on wood, everything, seems to be going fine, but you learn a lot. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn what you will tolerate, what you won't tolerate, when you realize that, when you're faced with your own mortality.
Yeah. Well, and I think, especially with COVID and everything that happened during that time, I think, and it's a shame, people are afraid of death. There's nothing wrong with that. It's completely understandable. I think a lot of the COVID stuff and the regulations in Michigan, that all the lockdown stuff, the government preyed upon people's fear of that, and it's sad to see that, because it is a true fear. And I think people have to understand that no matter what, nobody makes it through this in the end, and you have to accept that. I mean, you can get hit by a bus any day, but it's about living life to the fullest, and you never know what's going to happen. We just went through that hurricane down here in the end of September, and I know people that have lost everything. I was very lucky. My family and I were very lucky. Our house is fine. On the business side of it, I've lost 8 venues for my gigs. One of them has come back since, but some of them, like Burt's and Matt Lachey, just absolutely gone, nothing left. Another one got 8 feet of water, and that one's gone. And so everybody, and I know of people that have died because of this hurricane. And
yeah,
so you just, you do the best with what you got, and you got to push forward and keep a positive mindset. And that's why when you can go out and support live music, live comedy, support the live local venues in your area, and not just McDonald's. It's important to do so, because it's those people that are also going through those hard times.
No, definitely. I agree 100%. It's good to be out there, and like you said, I'm a huge fan of supporting live local stuff, which is great.
Yeah, you have to be. So with the other thing you're doing, you have a podcast, A Drink with Derek. That
Yes.
I've been on that show, and it's on CTA as well as YouTube. What made you start that, and how do you feel it's grown over the years that you've been doing it?
Well, I started it off a few years back, and it was it was just kind of put together as I literally had set up a my phone, and we'd be at a bar for the most part, or literally having a drink.
Yeah.
And I'd set it up, and I'm like, I'm not editing this thing. We're starting it. We're going to talk for about 8, 10, 15 minutes, and then boom, we're done.
Yeah.
And I didn't care if there was background noise, if there was stuff going on, and because the whole concept came about was just friends of mine would always end up saying, I'd hear them talk on the phone, or they're talking to their significant other, and they're like, oh, I'm hanging out, I'm having a drink with Derek.
Right.
And so it's a lot of the conversations that I had with friends through the years just ended up, the theme behind that ended up, working out, because every time someone say I'm having a drink with Derek, we'd end up having a lot of these having these very, in-depth conversations about all kinds of stuff. And it wouldn't intentionally go that way. It just organically, morphed into those discussions. So,
and those are the best conversations in the end too. And
yeah,
you don't realize you're having them until they're over too.
Exactly. And so it was just a concept that I had, I'm like, well, let me go ahead and add a little more production to this. Once COVID hit, and then it was kind of forced people to, do different things. I'm like, well, I can't sit next to people. Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
So, you can't sit next to people and have a drink. Mm-hmm. And so that's when I had started recording it, through StreamYard, which is like a Zoom type of a format. And then I'm like, oh, I like how this works out. So it ended up just kind of evolving. So if you look back at the first episode all the way up until the most recent ones, you can see how everything has changed, and the conversations got a little more in depth, started adding a little more production value to it, and made it a little more slick.
Cool.
And but I still try to keep the the fun, organic nature of it, as far as the conversations are concerned. So, so I'm happy with the way it comes out. I mean, hope people enjoy it. It seems to be doing well. Seems to be picking up steam. Get comments from people on the interviews, which is always fun. But but it's a great way to connect with people. And I haven't seen a lot of these friends in a long time, and it's great to see them again, and a lot of new friends too that I have met along the way.
Yeah.
That we have a conversation. If I'm working with another comedian, and then all of a sudden it's like hey, you know what, I've got this podcast. I'd love to have you on and talk what we just talked about.
Right.
So it's it's fun to be able to kind of work with people and see them, and then kind of vet how the whole process comes about.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I started this podcast as well. The Imbasciani Chronicles, I started as an audio only podcast at the time during COVID, because I was out of work. All my musician friends around me were out of work. So I figured, well, the hardest thing, even for somebody like you and me, I mean, you're in Las Vegas, I'm here in Southwest Florida. When you're here, we catch up if we can. Normally I'm playing, or you're at Imbasciani doing your shows, and so we miss each other. We're friends, but we end up missing each other, and we catch each other for 5 minutes, but you can't really have a conversation. And so I feel like this podcast in its old form, and what I'm trying to do in this new form in video on YouTube, is have those conversations that we can't always get to now that we are all busy again, because we're friends and we text each other now and then, but it's nice to actually sit down and have a conversation and remember why we're friends.
No, exactly. I agree completely.
Yeah. So it's
great to
cool.
have this opportunity. Great to be able to put these things together. And like I said, I've knocked out. I mean, I don't always try to, I try to crank out a new episode every week if I can.
Yeah.
But because my, schedule on the cruise ships, if I'm
get
away,
turned around and get back to Puerto Rico.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So, I don't always want to, take the studio with me, and I can't, And a lot of times it's, I like being able to have, consistency as far as the quality is concerned. A couple times, and you go back and look at some of the other episodes that I had done of A Drink with Derek when I was on the road.
Yeah.
And, you're in a hotel that has sketchy Wi-Fi and it locks up, and or you're staying in some comedy condo that, the background is just some 1970s, curtains, and because you're trying to find the best possible thing.
That's why you have to have a nice green screen like me and be in Tahiti.
I know, right? Exactly. Yeah, I mean, right now behind me, this is my kitchen, so this works out. This works perfect here. So
very nice.
So I know a lot of these guys are, are very diligent about, doing their stuff on the road and being able to try to, recreate that setup. And I'm like, God bless them. I'm like, you know what? I like my setup at my house.
Mm-hmm.
I like how it's how it works and how it feels over there. And so I'm like, if I can't get one every single week, I always try to pull back one from the archives and knock that out every Thursday in case people didn't get a chance to see it.
And tell me about some of the guests you've had. You've had some big people on your show. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've had Brad Garrett has been on the podcast. Also, Drew Pearson, a Hall of Fame wide receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. Roy Wood Jr., who was on the Daily Show, and he's kicking ass. Rich Voss, hilarious comic out of New York, has been on here. I mean, so many great acts. I mean, Chad Daniels, Zoltan Kazis has been on board. A lot of real good, and then authors as well. So I try to, span the range of everything. So sometimes it's a little more of a serious conversation, and sometimes it ends up just being ridiculous, which is always a lot of fun too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Cool. With your cruise ships, and I was just talking to somebody else who does cruise ships as well. Where's the best place that you've gone on a cruise ship?
It's been maybe probably 7 years ago, 6-7 years ago. I'd done one in Europe that started in Venice and ended in Rome, and it was 12 days.
Oh, that's cool.
But my favorite stop ever was Dubrovnik, Croatia.
Really?
Absolutely gorgeous. I mean, just a postcard.
Yeah. People
couldn't be nicer. Fantastic food. We were there for I think 12 hours, something like that, and it was just an incredible place to go to. I mean, I highly recommend it to anybody. And you hear different celebrities that are like, oh, so and so, Brad Pitt stayed out here for a week, and you look there and you go, this is exactly why they stayed out here. Yeah. That to me, Dubrovnik, Croatia is one of the most beautiful places on the planet that I've ever been to.
Croatia, who would have thought?
That and also Taormino, Sicily.
Really? That's cool.
Gorgeous. I mean, just a postcard. Took they drop you off at the port, and then they take you on like a little shuttle bus all the way up to the top of the mountain, like where there's the town and the village, and just
cool.
Yeah, anywhere you walk, any place you turn, just like it's right out of right off of a movie set. Just gorgeous.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, Stanley Tucci has some show that I've been watching on Hulu where he loves Italian food, so he goes to all these little spots in Italy and shows all these little tiny family-owned restaurants like on top of a hill that have been there for 3 family generations, and talks about it and the amazing food and the family dynamic, and I can just imagine it's
like Olive Garden, beautiful. Macaroni Grill,
right? Of course,
exactly.
When you're here, you're family.
Sure, Sbarro at the airport. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, right. Yes.
Get yourself a great big slice of the crappiest pizza on the planet. Yes.
Oh yeah. When
delicious.
All I can picture then is that video that came out a couple years ago of that rat pulling the piece of pizza down the steps into the subway. Remember that? Yes.
That's beautiful.
Oh, it's wonderful. Speaking of beautiful things, how about all the crackdown of comedy here that has been happening? It's unfortunate. Everybody's getting offended by everything. But I feel like that is the media really pushing it. I think when you actually are a normal person, you're going to comedy clubs. Like I go to Visani every now and then when I can and see the comedians that come in. They're all hilarious. Everybody enjoys it. If there's one person that is a heckler, they're dealt with accordingly. And most of the time, people are very respectful. you're going around the country, you're on these cruise ships. Has it been getting worse? Is it getting better? With as far as people in their offense?
Well, I mean, it's a numbers game, like anything. It's you're doing a show in front of, a theater on a cruise ship with, there's 800 people on board, or 800 people in the in the theater, 800 to 1,000 people, and so, you have to do family friendly shows on the cruise ships as well as adult shows, at least on Royal Caribbean.
Right.
Some of the other cruise lines are just very they're strict about just doing it family friendly. And as I like to say to people, I go, listen, it's family friendly, but it's not a show for kids.
Right.
I say, listen, I don't juggle, I don't do magic, I don't do ventriloquism. I go, you're just not going to hear any sketchy. You're not going to hear any bad language or any And I just I say, listen, parents, I go, your kids heard a lot worse from you when you were homeschooling them during lockdown. So let's just all take it easy.
Right.
So once you kind of preface it like that, as far as the family-friendly shows go, people understand. But no, I think it's you almost need to, unless you're an act that the audience knows what they're walking into, like somebody who's coming out to see Daniel Tosh, or somebody who is coming out to see Bill Burr, or Dave Chappelle. They don't need to go ahead and preface anything by saying, listen, it's okay to laugh, relax, we're cool, we're all friends here, it's comedy. They don't need to say that. Somebody already is spending, 80 to $500 for a ticket to go see these people.
They know what to expect. Yeah,
they know what to expect.
And you still get the people that are groaning when you see specials from them, and they should know better because they are going into it knowing who they are.
Yeah, you know who you're coming to see. I mean, I'm not going to complain if I'm going to go see AC/DC. I'm not going to bitch that they're not doing a ballad.
Right.
So
it's too loud.
Exactly. You know why you're walking in there.
Yeah.
So it's it's a little balancing act that I think we've had to juggle with as comedians with some people. I mean, there's only been a couple of times where somebody has walked out of a show. Not on the not as far as on the cruise ships are concerned, but just in comedy clubs.
Yeah.
Where once in a while somebody you can tell that, and they get up and leave. I'm like, go.
Yeah.
I'm like, everybody else is staying and laughing. How
exactly.
Why are you?
I already got your money.
Problem.
Right.
This is a you problem. This isn't a me problem.
Yeah.
So if you want to be offended about it, that's you. I could care less.
Well, and I left that little at the beginning of that last clip I played. You mentioned what you have on the T-shirts that you were selling. You're offended, I'm happy.
If I find it, you find it offensive, I find it funny. That's why I'm happier than you. And that saying's been around forever.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And it's it's been around for a long, long time. I didn't come up with it. Somebody else did a long time ago. And but it makes more sense now than ever. In light of the landscape of what we're living in here. But I always say, listen, if comedy's not for everybody. If you have that much of a sensitive palate, then you should just stay home, drink by yourself, pet your cat. No one likes you.
Right, pretty much. Words to live by. Same thing with music, with live music. Yes. I mean, I got heckled by a lady. I told this story on a couple different things already, but I don't know if I told you the story. It was my first gig back after the hurricane. And I had lost 3 weeks of work as it was already coming out because places weren't open, which understandable, no power, blah, blah, blah. We were without power. I was without power for 6 days. Hurricane Charlie in 2004, it was 2 weeks. Anyway, first gig back, everybody's happy to be there because they finally get to go out. It was one of the lesser hit areas. That's why they were able to open. Place was packed. We were there. I was playing. And luckily for me, it's harder to hear hecklers because the band is so loud. I mean, when you're one person talking, one person yelling out is a lot easier to hear. But this lady's coming up, and I could tell she's upset about something. I thought it was because I was playing back in the USSR again. But I end up finding out she ends up leaving, goes back to the bar, shoves 3 different people separately before she's finally thrown out of the bar. I then find out on the break she told my friend, or was pointing to me saying, "You suck. You should be ashamed of yourself for coming here and making money off of people in a disaster." That's what she said. I was like, first of all, I went through that same disaster, so I'm just trying to go back to make my living. And second of all, you came here. Everybody else came here and everybody else wanted to be entertained. So I'm here doing
Unreal.
my job, and everybody else is having a great time. So that's why it's like you can't let that one person get to you anyway.
No, I mean that's just, and again, the fact that she would come out there and say that,
Right.
and be like that and act like such a tool bag is really pretty mind blowing. And again, everybody else is out there trying to have a good time, and all of a sudden she wants to come in and act like this. It's like,
Yeah.
was it an older lady, younger lady?
It was older lady. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's on a purse full of meds and and 3 Tito's and sodas, and I mean it's gonna.
Yeah.
SSRIs don't mix with alcohol, so that's just a good rule to carry around with you.
Well, and you said it. You know the comedian you're going to see. I mean, comedy isn't for everyone, and certain comedians aren't for everyone. You have to know who you're going to see, and if you don't like that person, go find somebody you do like. And same thing with music and bands. And maybe you're more into coffee shop jazz. It doesn't matter. But
Yeah, it's an art form like anything else. I mean,
Right.
I'm sure we pull up all my songs on my downloaded Apple Music list. It's not going to line up with everybody else's, and so the song that you listen to when you go for a jog isn't the song that I listen to when I go to work out. So there's nothing wrong with that, and the fact that now more than ever that you have the technology to
it's at your
pull
fingertips.
stuff up on your phone, and like, oh, Derek Richards is playing over at Imbasciani. Let's go see what he does, and then you go and pull up my clips on YouTube or whatever, and you see it, and you're like, oh, let's go see him, or no, that's not going to be my cup of tea.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I have zero issue with that.
Right.
So, but the fact that you don't do that as a consumer and know what you're walking into, and then even if you walk into that and you did your research, and then still there's something that is said,
Yeah.
where literally someone will let a 15-second joke, ruin their night, just blows me away.
Yeah. Means you're not a happy person to begin with.
I will never understand that person or those people. I won't.
Yeah.
I will never get that.
Well, and I think the conversation I had the other day about this with somebody was a lot of it is because on the internet you can comment so quickly and everybody can comment on something that they see, including a comedy bit on YouTube. Then
Right.
they think when they get out in real life it's the same thing. It's now what you're seeing. The Will Smith, he just came out with another statement saying, it was all the pent up anger he felt inside. It's like, well, that's not an excuse, buddy.
From watching his wife bang other dudes?
Probably.
Okay.
So, but it's unacceptable anyway. It's like, well, you have to understand this is the real world and not act that way.
Exactly. Yeah, there's all kinds of weird stuff that people do and what people choose to be offended by. And there was some guy came up after a show one time, and I do a joke about Biden, where I say, listen, I'll say this about Biden. I said if he were working the drive-through, you would 100% check your order for accuracy before you drove off.
Right.
And so I go ahead and make fun of what he put in the bag and stuff like that. And so it's a very innocuous, harmless joke. The crowd loses it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's just pointing out the very obvious stuff that's going on with him,
Yes.
his cognitive abilities or lack of cognitive
Shaking hands
abilities.
with the ghost.
Or doing any one of a number of things, reading the teleprompter cues. I mean, it was. But the
Repeat
joke
sentence.
literally is probably under 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And so this guy comes walking up after a show one time, and he goes, "Well, he says, I think if you're going to go ahead and make fun of the president, what you should also do is you need to balance that and make fun of Trump as well." And I go, "He's not in office."
Right.
And he goes, "Well, but you need to go ahead." And I go, I no, he's not in office." And I kept saying that.
Yeah.
And I stood there with my arms crossed right in front looking at the guy. And I was just talking to a group of people after a show, and we were all laughing, having a good time. And this guy just comes walking up and literally party crashes.
Of course.
And the four that were standing there that we were talking to were kind of like snickered and
Yeah.
walked away because they knew where this was going.
Right.
And I just continued to say, he's not in office anymore. I said, when Trump was in office and Trump would do stupid stuff, I would make fun of him.
Yeah.
I go, he's not in office. And when
and
Trump
I've
was in
heard-
office, I didn't make fun of Hillary because she wasn't in office. And he kept saying, "Well, you need to go ahead." And I go, "I don't need to do anything." I go, "He's not in office." He said, "We got to make fun of it." I go, "He's not in office. He's not in office." Like, he just kept saying that.
And they can't say anything else.
And I know he just got more and more pissed. I'm like, I'm making fun of the existing situation. So if this is going to bother you that much, and you with your boatload of advice, I would suggest that you go ahead and start up your own comedy show.
And you can joke about whatever you want to.
And then you can joke about whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
He goes, "Well, I think you lost half the audience." I go, "I didn't hear me losing half the audience at all over the laughter and applause. They seem to really enjoy it. You seem to be the only douchebag who has a problem with this."
Yeah.
So
it's always one.
It's a numbers game.
Yep. But comedy's important, music's important. Folks watching, go support your local entertainers and your local venues. It's very important.
I agree completely. Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll see you. We'll get a chance to support you when you're at Leroy's on St. Patrick's Day.
Definitely. And folks, make sure you check out Derek Richards' website. Tell us everything everywhere. You're on the Twitter, the new Elon Musk freed Twitter.
The new Elon Musk revamped Twitter.
Yes.
Which looks amazing. My website is DerekRichards.com. You can also find me at theirishcomedytour.com. We've got a bunch of dates coming up here. December 26th through January the 8th, I'll be at Brad Garrett's Comedy Club here at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas. And then on Saturday, February 11th, I'll be at the Fruenthal Theater in Muskegon, Michigan with my good friend Dave Landau. So all those dates are on. It's going to be a great show. All of those dates are on my website, DerekRichards.com, and then also theirishcomedytour.com as well. And then go to YouTube to see the podcast Drink with Derek.
Perfect. And you have, of course, Double Down. Where can people find that?
Get it on iTunes, Spotify, and also Amazon. Anywhere you go to download your music or your comedy, you can find it. So it is
excellent.
Right there.
And then your book, Whiskey, Cancer, and Bad Decisions. Where can people find that?
That is also on Amazon. You can grab the hard copy if you like. You can also get it via Kindle as well.
Excellent. Well, Derek Richards, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It's always great to talk to you, buddy. I love having you on.
Always great talking to you too, my friend. Thank you so much, man. Have a great holiday, and enjoy your time in Tahiti behind you. That looks.
I know.
Just like Florida.
I will do my best, folks.
Only you would find a more. You live in like one of the most beautiful states that's out there in Florida, and you go, nah, this isn't enough for me.
Another one.
That's just you being greedy.
I need a mountain. There's no mountains in Florida. Highest mountains is a garbage dump.
It's a landfill. That's a big landfill behind you. That's not even Tahiti. That's a landfill in Ocala that is right behind you.
Probably. Well, folks, thank you so much for watching the Imbasciani Chronicles. I'm your host. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like this video, comment down below, subscribe to the Imbasciani Chronicles and this channel, and see all the videos, live gig videos, the Imbasciani Chronicles reaction videos, as well as the Loft sessions, and see a whole bunch of stuff that's going on. Folks, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you, everybody.
And leave nice comments. Don't leave.
Always.